So if you ever wondered how your business can do a better job of communicating with your clients and create a level of expectation with them that far exceeds what your competition is doing, well, that's what Jeremy and I are going to talk about today as we talk a bit about marketing automation and how you can implement marketing automation to benefit your business by better serving your customers. I guess, how do we convince business owners that marketing automation is actually a good thing and that it really can help them provide a higher level of service to their customers that sets them apart from their competition who's not using it?
That's a really good question. Jonathan, have you ever ordered an Uber?
Absolutely.
So I think that kind of explains the answer to your question is if we can set automation up in communication, clients never have to worry about what comes next.
It reminds me, we talked before we started recording, we started talking about Domino's. And, I remember being down in Cincinnati a couple months ago for a trade show and didn't want to go sit alone in a restaurant. So I ordered Domino's, and it was amazing to watch. Not only did they tell me when the chicken I ordered was ordered, they told me when it was going in the oven. They told me when it was coming out of the oven. They told me when it was getting put into the delivery car, or in my case, the delivery bicycle basket. And they showed me on a map where that bicycle was maneuvering the streets of Cincinnati to get to my location at my hotel to deliver it to me. And I could literally see as he's coming around the corner a block away to go, okay, I better go down to the first floor now, because I knew he wasn't coming upstairs to get that delivery. And it was amazing because it gave me all the information I needed. And it was part of the reason that I ordered from Domino's as opposed to somebody else, because I knew I'd be able to know what was going on. And I think that's, again, the case for our customers too. If we can help them with that, we can create an experience. Like you mentioned, Uber. I order an Uber, it tells me who's assigned that, shows me on a map where they're at, tells me how long before they get to my location. That's the type of service that our customers, regardless of our industry, have really begun to expect in so many areas.
Yeah. Those are pretty extreme examples of automation. But even the simplest automation when it comes to marketing, somebody comes to your website and they fill out a form, automation just helps your communication with that client and creates, it knocks down that barrier of what do they do next, right? They know what has to happen next. And then automation also reminds a business of what they need to do next with that person. So, and it's a lot easier than I think what people think.
Well, I think that's a good point. We probably should simplify it. And you're right. For most businesses that are not doing it, it can be as simple as a chat tool that's on your website that when somebody enters a chat, we ask them for their cell phone number, and it automatically texts them back to let them know that, hey, you've contacted us at 9 o'clock our night. Our offices are closed, but we want to let you know we've received your message, and somebody's going to follow up with you before 8:30 tomorrow morning when our office opens. That's great, because now you've just told that prospect or that customer of yours what their expectation should be, which is you'll hear from me tomorrow morning. And then you can also notify the staff, just like you mentioned, so that when they pop up their computer at 8 o'clock, they can go, look, we had 4 inquiries last night. You've got till 8:30 to get them all called or to follow up with them. And on both sides, we win by providing better customer service. And like you said, it's really not difficult to do that. I mean, there's software that essentially automates all of that. It's just a matter of deciding the flow chart. Okay, when a call comes in, how quickly do I want to respond? What do I want to say to them? And who do I want to notify in my staff so that we can follow up? I think one of the things that most amazed me in that is that there's also multiple ways to follow up with customers with the software nowadays. I mean, obviously we can send emails, but we can send text messages, and we can even do blind voicemail drops where we take pre-recorded messages and send them to a customer. You've probably gotten those from your doctor before. The doctor's office calls up and reminds you that tomorrow you've got an appointment at such and such a time. It's rarely a live person. It's a pre-recorded message. But I know I appreciate those because I may have forgotten to put that on my calendar, or oops, I may not have thought about that, and now it brought it to the top of my mind again. And not only does that help the doctor's office, because I'm sure a lot fewer people cancel, but more importantly, they have a lot fewer people that don't show up at all. And, that's got to be helpful for their scheduling. So it's a win on both sides. And again, this is 10 years ago, this would have been really hard. 5 years ago, it would have been hard. Nowadays, it's simply a matter of having some software in place and maybe taking a couple of hours, probably not even that long, to flow chart out what you want to happen. And then it's just taken care of.
Yeah. I think, I mean, we have the DISC personality assessment that people can take. And, the people in the high S and the high Cs, setting expectations is like an anxiety if you don't do it. And to me, automation sets those expectations so well, because it's just like, if this happens, I don't have to forget. It just, there's a step in process on like a business owner side of saying, this needs to happen, this needs to happen, and this needs to happen. And like we talked about, it's just so easy nowadays to do that.
Well, and it brings in mind SOPs, or standard operating procedures, how easy it is as a business for you to have that SOP and then implement it if you've got software reminding your customers and your staff what they're supposed to do next. I mean, it really takes a huge step. And again, I want to make it clear to the business owners that are listening, this does not have to be the type of implementation that Uber or Domino's did. Those are great and those are fun, but it can be like that, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, you could be a law office that simply wants to remind people, one, confirm the appointment when they've set it, so they get a text message. And I got to admit, I'm a fan of text because we all get way too many emails. And if I've scheduled an appointment, I'd rather have that vendor text me, whether it's the HVAC guy coming to my house or whether it's the oil change for my car or whatever. Confirm that via text. Hey, we've just scheduled your appointment. And by the way, here's a button you can press to add it to your calendar. That software is easy. And then remind me a day before, just, hey, a reminder, tomorrow you've got that. And for those like us, where we do lots of Zoom meetings, we found out that just a 10-minute warning, so to speak, 10 to 15 minutes prior to that appointment, to go, hey, this is Jeremy, and I'm looking forward to talking to you in 10 minutes. As a reminder, here's that Zoom link. It greatly increases the engagement of our prospects and or our customers. And we even hear from them, they appreciate it, because, we've all gotten busy and then went, oh crap, I got a Zoom meeting that started 3 minutes ago and I forgot about it.
Yep.
So I think there's some real world stuff that fits across the board. It's not just for consumer-based organizations. It's not just for retail. It can fit service businesses. It can fit manufacturing. I mean, I think of a manufacturing environment. Imagine if your processes are set up, and this would not be that hard to, one, be able to confirm an order when it's been placed. So somebody from purchasing at one of your big clients, they place an order and you email or text them back a confirmation of that automatically. And that then triggers something in your system to remind everybody of what's happening. And whether that's, hey, this needs to get moved to production tomorrow, or we need to fill out this form next, or whatever is happening internal. I think that's what so many businesses are maybe not aware of, that those automations and reminders can also happen internally with your staff to help you provide a better level of service and follow those standard operating procedures that you've set up.
Yeah. It really comes down to expectations and how do I put this? Excelling the customer experience and expectations. So
yeah. Well, and although not everybody knows, we've got a producer sitting in the background, Mike, and Mike just put a chat message up, and I think he makes a really good point. He talked about, if we can do that automated response before the prospect looks elsewhere, we've just made a huge jump on our competition. So from a sales perspective, taking that prospect who's now interested in your business and considering, we know everybody's busy. And, if I need, for example, my furnace worked on and I've reached out, and maybe it's a new company, a new service provider, if they text me back right away, or they call me back right away or something and let me know what's happening, the chances that I'm going to call the next person in my Google search are limited, because they just solved my problem. Even if they haven't come out to my house, they've solved my issue. I can mark it off my checklist. Great, I've scheduled somebody to come look at the furnace. And I think that's, Mike, a really good point. It's a great way to beat your competition. That I should look, I don't know if I can share it or not. Probably don't have it handy. We'll put it in post. but Harvard Business Review just did a study, and they show a graph of how fast we follow up with customers and the likelihood, or prospects, I'm sorry, and the likelihood that that prospect then becomes a customer. And it's amazing. If you follow up after 5 minutes, the chances of them becoming a customer drops from like 90% to like 30. And after 10 minutes, it drops to like 10%. We again, and physically, sometimes we just can't follow up that fast. I mean, especially if a customer reaches out after hours. But with automations, we can follow up and we can communicate with them and let them know. And, you know, we're not even talking about advanced stuff like branching algorithms and all that can be done, you know, for, hey, if this, then that. We're just simply confirmations can go a long ways in providing better service to your clients.
100%.
Jeremy, in your experience, obviously we look at a lot of things from a marketing perspective. How can automations, if we go beyond just follow-up and reminders, how can businesses use automation to help drive that customer experience, that customer journey down the path the customer wants to go? You and I both know they can choose things, and then again, if this, then that. If they do this, then we're going to do that. Can you describe that a little bit to the people maybe watching on how that can work, and maybe give us an example?
Let's say you have a form on your website. You can have that form be kind of a client journey where they kind of get to choose their own adventure, and the questions that they answer will automate the next form slide, I guess I want to say, where their responses will pretty much allow them to decide if they want to work with you or not, or vice versa. We work with, am I allowed to talk about?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. We work with Post Hardwoods, and they have an automation software. So on that form, hey, if it's this kind of tree, we want to talk to you. If it's not this kind of tree, it's something else. If you have more than X many, then we want to talk to you. Otherwise, we're going to put your name in our bank, and we'll reach out when we have time to come off and do those smaller jobs. I think that's great.
I think Post is actually a really good example too. So just a little bit of background. They buy standing timber and they turn it into wood that gets used. Everything from logs and boards down to wood chips that get used. They use every bit of that tree. But for people watching, they need the ability to reach out to property owners and find people that want to sell their trees. And you've got 30 acres or 50 acres or whatever, and you want to sell some of those trees. And they were just going to run a Google ad and said, hey, let's just run an ad and see what happens. The problem is they've got foresters in, I believe, about 8 different counties, maybe more. Don't hold me to the number, but multiple counties here in Michigan. And based upon, like you said, based upon the type of land, the location they're in, and the type of trees that homeowner or that property owner has, depends on how important that is to them today. They're looking for specific species of wood and specific lot sizes where they know they'll have enough trees to make it worthwhile. And through some simple automations we put in place, now when somebody sees that ad and they fill out that information, and it's still a relatively simple form, the automations handle all of the initial follow-up with the customer. They handle all of the follow-up with the foresters to tell them who they need to do with. And there's even reminders then that go out a couple days later to like the foresters saying, hey, don't forget, Jeremy submitted this and he's got 50 acres and he's got the type of wood we're looking for. Or like you said, if maybe it's a homeowner like where I live and I've got some acreage on the farm where we live, but I've got the wrong type of timber for them, they can still say, hey, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. At the moment, we don't need exactly what you have, but we're going to keep you on file. So down the road we can. And then through that automation, now we've used that ad to get that customer's information, and now they can market to me once a month, once a quarter, once a year, whatever they want, to keep reminding me that they buy hardwoods, because maybe I've got neighbors that have it and other things like that. So we've taken this really simple goal. Oh, hey, let's run an ad to find property owners that have trees. And now we've turned it into a process that actually drives relevant leads to them quickly and is building a huge database for them of property owners that maybe they're going to need in 2 years when the market changes and all of a sudden they want this species versus that species. So I think it's a really good real world practical example of they're not some national huge national corporation. They're based in Hamilton, Michigan, and they've got, I don't know, probably 20 or 30 employees, and yet we've been able to leverage that for them in a way that's really helping them grow their business, while also in this case spending less on Google ads because they were able to filter and automate and not wonder what's going on. As business owners, we've all done ad campaigns and, wow, I wonder if that worked. They know exactly what works. They know exactly how many leads they've got. They know exactly who the individuals are. They know exactly where they're located. Just so much more information that business can now use on a long-term basis.
Mm-hmm. I know I used to coach businesses on, their client experience. And so if they did an outline or even like, a mind map of every time something was to pivot and a transaction happening, there should be a communication spot there. And those are the things, like when you say you want to map it out, if that's where you want to start, look at your process of, when a lead comes in to the time that you have a sale and after, and anytime that there's something that needs to be talked about, just create an email for it, and then we can help you automate it.
Absolutely. Well, and simple things. I worked with another client last night, and they've got an event coming up next week. And they have, in this case, not a ton of people, but they've got about 54 people they wanted to reach out to about that, and they wanted to make sure that they got followed up on. So we set up a really simple auto sequence. One, here's announcing the event. We'd love you to come, and here's the form to fill out to register if you want. If they don't respond to that, in 2 days, they're going to get a reminder about the event. And then 24 hours prior, because it's a webinar, they're going to get a reminder again. If they do fill out the form, they get a different set of communications, and it's confirming what they've got. It's telling them how to prepare for it and to build up that excitement so they show up for the webinar. And then ultimately, because it's a webinar, and we know that even if 50 people register, only about 5 or 10 will show up, then afterwards, now we've got all this information to utilize to follow up again automatically with that entire group on the replay of the webinar. And the neat thing is all we had to do was talk for about 20 minutes to figure out, okay, say this, say this, say this. We had a couple ideas, and now they don't have to worry about anything. It's done, it's processed. Even after the webinar, there's emails that'll be going out to this group reminding them, hey, you missed it, but you can still watch it, or all kinds of things that will continue driving leads. It was a relatively small time investment to create potentially massive value versus paying an individual to sit there and remember, okay, today I've got these 54 people I need to write separate emails out to, and I need to send that, and then I need to track, did they open it or did they not open it? Or, okay, this one clicked on the video and watched the video. Should I send them something different? We just decided that, and then the automation takes care of it.
Yep. Just takes a little pre-planning, and then you can change your world.
And a little, I think, is the key. Me, I mean, you're the SOP king. You love SOPs, and while I like them in theory, they scare me to death because it's details, and my ADD personality just goes, but even for me, it's not a huge time investment. And the thing that I love about it, being somebody that, got diagnosed with ADD at 43 years old, was I don't have to worry about it now, because I took 20 to 30 minutes to walk through it and figure it out. And now it's off my plate. I don't have to wonder tomorrow, oh, do I need to do this or to do that? In that same scenario with that event, I would have been perfectly capable of wasting 30 to 60 minutes every day between now and the webinar, and probably 30 to 60 minutes a day after the webinar, to make sure I'd appropriately followed up with everybody, to remember to do it, to take the time each day to remember what I should send, because of course I wouldn't pre-plan it. In exchange, I spent about 30 minutes total, and now the next week plus 2 weeks after are all taken care of. And I probably, other than showing up to do the webinar, don't need to do anything else, period.
Yep. I love it.
No, agreed. What are some other interesting ways people can use automations? Any thoughts? Let's just say, somebody's in the damage restoration world. We do some work there. How do they use automations to help better serve their prospects and customers?
I think the easiest one that has a lot of impact, set up a Christmas text or a Christmas voicemail drop or a holiday, I guess I should say, where, hey, wanted to wish you happy holidays. Thank you for letting us serve you. If you touch them on the holidays, you would probably be their restoration company for life, and you probably get more referrals.
I love the birthday idea too. Who doesn't like to get something, even, let's face it, even on Facebook, while we may get annoyed that 432 people wished us happy birthday and we didn't know 200 of them, it still makes us feel good. It brings that little warmness to you to go, wow, wow, that's neat. Imagine if you had your birthday and nobody said anything. You might wonder what was going on. So as a company, like you said, if you automate that, super easy, and the neat thing that brings up to me, you can even automate further things. So you could automate in that case, let's say you had a card vendor that sent out birthday cards. You could send an email to the card vendor a week prior to the birthday with the context information saying, okay, it's Jeremy Mullens and his birthday's on next week, Thursday, and here's his address. Please send a card to him. Yep. And that automation could, again, once it's in there, now, Jeremy, you are getting a birthday card that looks like it's handwritten, admittedly from a service, but it's coming up the mail, it's unique. So it's not just digital. These automations can impact lots of stuff in the real world as well.
Yep. Make people feel good. I think that's what, if I were to automate anything, that's what I would do. Right.
That'd be a great first step. Software wise, I mean, you and I know there's costs go all over. We've heard of software packages that do automations that are literally, tens of thousands of dollars a year. I know the software that we use, just ballpark, is, $100 to $200 a month on average, and depending on where they want to go. That seems to me to be a relatively small investment to help expedite your team. Just even if you think of the man hours that you can save, in nowadays culture, that's like paying somebody for a few hours worth of work on your team. Even a minimum wage, it's half a week that you've got to save a month, or 20 hours a month, which, again, if we're talking minimum wage, that person is probably not as proficient anyway. So we're going to save them even more time, and we're going to save you as a business owner time, because you're not going to get as many questions about it. It's just going to take care of itself.
Yeah. To me, Thomas, our software, I think is incredible. I've worked with a lot of CRMs, a lot of processes like ClickFunnels, like this, you do this, then this comes next. And Thomas keeps up with all of them and leads in most of them, to be honest with you.
Well, that's one of the reasons we picked it. And at the end of the day, I don't care whether they use the software we recommend or not. There's lots of options. I know one of the things that often comes up is, again, not to belittle any of the big players, because there's some excellent players, but some of them, like you said, they start at $7,000 to $8,000 a year. That's a much bigger nut to crack and justification than if I know I got to cover, $200 a month. That's a much different discussion to have, all things considered.
Agreed.
I mean, if you think what we do as business owners when we have a frustrated customer to make things up, we can often spend far more than $200 to fix a situation. If we can avoid that situation, all the better, across the board. And then, as Mike brought up earlier, if we can do that to a level that we're now increasing our responsiveness above our competition, we're really creating a great why us with that customer. And they're never going to want to go anywhere else, because they feel they've got that TLC, that communication that they wanted.
Agreed. 100%.
Good. Awesome. Well, Jeremy, I appreciate the information on this today. It's good talking about automations. And if you're watching this and you've got questions about it, reach out. Our team would be happy to help. Even if you don't want to work with our team, just do some searching on marketing automation and find out how you can implement that for your business, because there's a lot of steps you can take that'll really save you time and money, and ultimately help you better serve your customers.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan.